episode 2 of Historias Flamencas in English Flamenco Stories. Today I'm very pleased to welcome Carlos Montufar, a 20-year plus professional flamenco dancer, founder and executive director of the Phoenix World Arts Collective. The collective series La Pinta Flamenca regularly showcases flamenco artists from across the US, Spain, and abroad at ALAC, the Arizona Latino Arts and Cultural Center in downtown Phoenix. To me personally, Carlos is a wonderful new friend, a beautiful man inside and out, whose considerate, inspiring, and generous presence is always a pleasure to be in. Thank you so much for coming on today, and welcome.
Thank you so much. It's a pleasure. It's very rare that anybody asks about who's creating things and not really knowing what goes on behind the scenes. It's always the art, but never the artist behind it, right?
Yeah, definitely. That's why I wanted to start this series, like Historias Flamencas. There's so many people in the community, and everybody has their own particular role, and we need everybody. Mm-hmm. So I'd like people to learn more about what everybody does, what everybody means to flamenco, and also what flamenco means to everybody. So with that, my first question is usually, how did you first encounter flamenco and what got you hooked?
All right. So when I was 4 years old, my mother used to work for a radio station in Los Angeles called KW. And she used to receive invitations to different events, festivals, events, anything that she was involved with the radio station. They would invite her to these events. So in LA, there's a place called Placita Olvera, which is like this big plaza, and they have, different dances, cultural dances. They have Native American dances. But in this particular night, they had flamenco. And don't know if it was a professional company, don't know if it was a student company, but it captivated me at such a young age. And it was something that I always talked about. And it's something that I always remember to this day, talking to my mom about it. And I was just on fire, so young and so interested in it. And, but that's where I left it. And that's where my mother left it. And it wasn't something that I pursued until I actually left high school. Because we grew up in Los Angeles, moved to El Paso when I was 6. And then after high school, moved here to Phoenix. But I made it my goal that once I was out of my mother's home and my stepfather at the time, that I would pursue it for myself. Because growing up, very machista family, very... men didn't dance. Men went to school, men became an architect or an engineer, men provide for their families, and that's it. And so I never fit into that cookie cutter mold because I was an artist. Even before I started dancing, I was 19 years old when I took my first dance class. I was always painting. And I always felt that even painting and drawing was something I had to do on the down low, on my own time, in my room, behind closed doors, because it was just not studies. It was not school related. It was not, I had to keep my head in the books.
Right. And, it wasn't the traditional approved of activity for a male at the time.
Right.
Yeah. Right. That is tough.
It was tough, but I found in my own way, I would find ways to just get it out of my system. And it's funny, in one of the homes that we grew up, we had a tile floor in the front entrance. And I used to put on my dress shoes and just go up there and in my own way, create footwork and just make sound. It was just, for me, it was the ability to make sound with your body and to create phrasing and musicality with your body. I didn't have any technique. But it was just in my way. I was interpreting the things that I would see. And back then, we didn't have internet. I remember we received this one when Wikipedia was starting off, we received a little CD as an intro. And I right away put it in a CD-ROM. It was a CD-ROM. And I looked up flamenco. And I saw a picture of a woman with a fan. And they would talk about the oud. And how the influences of the oud flamenco. And I would play that and play that, and poor thing was just scratched up and because of me, because that's all I would do. I would just play that over and over and just fantasize and try to do as much research I could on it, because it was just not a lot of resources in El Paso. Then, yeah, and right before I graduated high school, a friend of mine was taking flamenco, and she invited me to one of her events, and it was a tablao, a little tablao inside there, like a juerga. It was a juerga in there.
Yeah. Oh, I love juergas. Yeah.
And, and they would just, showcase their pieces, and she danced sevillanas because that's what she was learning. And there was one dancer who went in, and it was more Spanish classical, but the lines and the feet were there, and it was just so beautiful. So it was unfortunate that I left El Paso right after high school, finding someone who taught it. And then it took me a good maybe year and a half before I can find somebody here in Phoenix who was teaching it.
Right. And who did you go to here in Phoenix at that time?
So I went to Laura Moya, and it was her studio that I went to at first. But she actually, I was thinking about it, because I always say that Laura Moya was my first teacher, and she was the first guidance I did receive. But actually, Sadora Dazi was my first flamenco teacher here, and she's based out of Phoenix right now. She doesn't dance anymore. She does other forms, and she does other, her other performances besides flamenco. But she was the one who warmed me up, and she was the one who started teaching me footwork, and it was all in the name of Laura Moya, because at that time Laura was already in her 80s, wasn't teaching very much, but she would pop into class to make sure that everything was still running smoothly with the students, and she would introduce herself and talk to us. But even her studio was such a huge inspiration, because she had all of her photos from, the 40s, 30s.
Yeah.
It was absolutely beautiful. Just the golden era of flamenco, and how women were just these goddesses, and the jewelry and the hair and, the different poses. And I never saw any video of her, and didn't see her until her last performance, when she completely stopped dancing. But she really did help me connect in a way with flamenco, that it was no longer just a fantasy, that it was something tangible for me. And she offered me free classes if I went and cleaned her studio, because I was a full-time student in college. And
nice.
She saw that I really, really tried. And of course, with the need of having male dancers here in the US, I felt like I always had the freeway pass to classes and choreography and teaching, and but can be a blessing and a curse. It's a blessing and a curse as well.
There's far fewer men in flamenco in classes, at least in North America, that I've seen. Same at my studio. And it's interesting. My teacher, Esmeralda Enriquez, she's from Texas. Too. But she moved to Spain, and she fell in love in Toronto, and then she stayed in Toronto and opened a studio there. But you never forget your first teacher, and all those, studio photos. And again, I didn't see her dancing, and I just took classes. I was like, I just love this. And that was that. So I completely relate. But that's amazing. I'm so glad that you at 19, you pursued it. You didn't give up. You were like, no, I'm still doing this. I'm going to wait, but I'm doing it. Yeah.
Yeah. It was, honestly, I feel like it was my way of rebellion. It was just because I was a good kid. I went to school. I did as my parents asked me. I was never at the parties. I didn't have this typical high school experience. I don't want to say that my mother was strict. It's just that I didn't want to let her down. And so I kept myself very in the box until I graduated high school and was on my own, and then decided that dance was something I was going to pursue. And if I failed, I failed. If I succeeded, I succeeded. But that was something that was by my choice. And so, and
when you do something for love, I don't think you really ever fail. You know what I mean? You can maybe fail to be on stages or be in a company or something like that. But I find I started late. I found it very late. I was 29. And my first thought was, oh my God, I love this. And I wanted to dance salsa first professionally. but I didn't like having to be with a partner and, just all the drama around men and salsa and da-da-da. So, and when I found flamenco, I was like, oh my God, but I'm too old. Like, I'm too old to do this professionally. But then I kind of went, well, I don't care. If I do it semi-professionally and if I get on a stage, it's kind of like I finished a choreography, and our teacher every year had the 1 year performance. And I thought, if that's all I ever do, that's fine. But I love this. And I remember being backstage. I think it was the second time. The first time around, I was so nervous, I thought I was going to die. And I don't know how I made it through the performance because I was a very shy person. Mm-hmm. And I remember thinking, I'm not going to make it. And then I did. But the next year, I was happier. I was more relaxed. And I remember being backstage and watching other people dancing. And she's kind of in the wings, doing palmas, making sure everyone's okay. And it just hit me. And I'm like, there's no place on earth I'd rather be.
Right.
And if I had that feeling, how can I fail? Like, you can't fail if that's the place that, and I think that's a lesson that a lot of people, I hear at least from a lot, I could never dance, or I could never, I'm not a dancer. I love it, but I'm not. Just do it and enjoy it. And whatever ride it takes you on, it's a great ride. You can't fail. Just do it, jump in.
It is very personal. It's a very personal thing when you make a decision like that for yourself, because you're in your own mind. You don't hear those background voices telling you yes or no, or, it's based on you. And I always say, I learned the most behind those wings. At any theater, watching artists, professional artists, watching the way that they get themselves prepared for a show, how they stand in the wings, that first and last breath they take before entering the stage. It's just all of these things where it is very personal. And it is, being a flamenco artist, yes, you're doing it for the patrons and you're doing it for the audience, but in the end, you're inviting them into your experience as a dancer. And so you're inviting them into this emotional, I don't want to call it roller coaster, but it is a ride. Flamenco is a ride. And so a lot of them may not know Spanish. A lot of them may not understand flamenco, but by watching you perform, they're with you on this ride and they can feel it. And that was just so mesmerizing for me as an artist.
Yeah, I've always thought that the arts, regardless of what art it is, but usually dance and music are most powerful, at least I think, or I feel that way. They're kind of the language of the soul. It's a direct connection, sort of soul to soul. You don't maybe know the language or you don't understand, but you're going through this emotional ride.
Right.
With the person. It's a journey that you take them on, and they're in your journey, but your journey is also a human and universal journey. So they see it from their perspective, but you're kind of like that anchor that allows them to journey. Mm-hmm. I know for me, like, I talk about trauma and healing a lot too, like through the arts, and it doesn't have to be like art therapy. I sometimes, if you ever have those times where you just are sort of rock solid and tight and you just can't feel anything, and then I go see a performance and I can cry, I can feel, I can be happy through watching somebody else, and it cracks me open. The arts always do that for me. So if I need to feel more human, I go find the arts, and flamenco first, always,
Of course. Flamenco has a way of personifying the words that we can't say.
Absolutely.
All dance, but flamenco, it's just within the cante, the baile, you lose yourself within their interpretation and then find yourself in all of that.
It's so rich. I appreciate all dance forms, but for me, and all art forms, honestly, but flamenco is the one for me. And that's kind of brings me to my next question. Like, what would you say got you hooked and keeps you hooked and engaged in flamenco and in the community all this time?
Mm-hmm. What got me hooked with flamenco is the fact that it is more of a solo art form. And with it being a solo art form, and yes, you take class, and I've been in classes with 25, 30, 50 people. but you're working on yourself. It's not so much, unless you're in a company rehearsal, of course, you have to learn to work together.
Right.
But I feel like at the time that I started really booming and blossoming in my art, I was finding myself. And flamenco was that safe space for me to question myself and to find myself and to really challenge myself and to find my breaking points and to find what it was that I really enjoyed within my dance and things that you start kind of nitpicking yourself in a way, which is good because you're sifting through who you are, through who you were creating yourself to be with certain people and who you were told you were going to be. So you find your identity within the dance, within that experience. You find your identity working with other people, with other students. So what really made it tangible for me, especially living here in Phoenix, because I did start off dancing with Martin Gaxiola's Calo Flamenco, and it was a lot of us locals in Phoenix. And I was brand new, still taking class and really trying to understand flamenco, but it was more choreography based. So I didn't get a lot of the fundamentals and the essentials required to actually create flamenco. It was a lot of just taking class, monkey see, monkey do, choreography, and trying to work on your technique and dance like so that you worked as a team in a company. So I learned how to dance as a company first rather than a solo artist. But then when Hijastros came, they came, I want to say it was back in 2005, 2006. I saw them perform, and they're out of Albuquerque, New Mexico. When I saw them perform, that's where I want to go. I want to do that. Whatever it is that they're doing, I want to do that. Because the styling was very different, the feeling was very different, and so I reached out to, I don't even know, it was MySpace back then, I believe. I sent out a message, and one of the dancers did respond, and I eventually got in touch with the director, Joaquin Encinas. I went to Albuquerque. He gave me a little bit of a tour and talked to me about the curriculum that he uses to teach flamenco out there. And I told him I want to be here at minimum 2 years and take it from there. So I literally moved there in June of 2007. And it was the greatest experience of my life because it was just things I would see in the movies with rehearsals and the sweating. And I used to change my shirt.
Yeah.
Like you see them just drenched. And I was like, I want to feel that. And I did. And I used to have to pack 3 shirts for rehearsal and like literally wring them out.
I believe you. I believe you. I've been there. I've been there in those rehearsals or classes where I honestly, everything on me was soaking wet, like down to the underwear, like everything you're just sweating so much. It's like a sauna. It's like every toxin you've ever had has left the room by the time you're done that class. Yeah. Those are the best. Actually, Ryan and I almost moved to Albuquerque because of, we came close, and then for housing reasons, we decided we'd be in Phoenix. Mm-hmm. So I don't yet regret that decision. I don't think I'm going to regret the decision. I'm glad it's close enough.
It's close enough.
And we have a lot going on here now. It's getting, more and more.
It's picking up, and we have our seasons. Albuquerque is nonstop. It's nonstop. So you'll always have an opportunity to study out there or catch a show. And so it was the community that I felt in Albuquerque that I truly hooked me. I felt like I was part of something. It felt like I was contributing to something. And I really learned to work as a team while being there. And just the dedication, the loyalty that we had for each other, for the art, for the artists, for the directors, it made it so real. It wasn't this hobby, what do you do? I dance flamenco. Oh, okay, that's a great hobby. What do you do? and it's always that, like, what is your career? And yes, dance is my career. This is what I do. And so I feel like that's always been the biggest obstacle as an artist here living in Phoenix, is that, you have to sell your art. You have to sell yourself and sell yourself super hard. But in the end, you're trying to sell yourself to people who've never seen flamenco before, so it almost feels as though I'm constantly starting over, because a new wave of people will come in, they'll see what I do, and then they move, or they do something, so I have to start over, or with new artists, new dancers, new companies that come in, so I have to stay humbled to that, because obviously I feel like I have to gain a new perspective with that. And it's a lot of work. Flamenco's a lot.
It is.
It's a lot of work.
It is. It is. And I came from a fairly large, not as big as Albuquerque, but a fairly large community in Toronto. But at the beginning, it wasn't as developed. So I remember, people would say, so what do you do? And I'm like, well, I work as at the college, and I'm a semi-professional flamenco dancer. And I would get, flamenco? You dance flamenco? I'm like, no, flamenco. Right? Like, what's that? Right? And now it's quite big in Toronto. There's a lot going on. So communities do grow and they do stabilize. And I would love for that to happen here for sure. Yeah. And I think I think it's on its way. I don't know. I have this feeling. And the next, go ahead.
No, I'm just saying, Phoenix does have the potential of being that, but the only thing in Albuquerque, it's one company, it's one business, it's one family providing this. Phoenix has multiple companies, and I feel like we have to find a way to where we can all come together. And that's why I created Phoenix World Arts Collective. I didn't want it to be Carlos Montufar Flamenco, because that would just create another island. That would create another little company working on its own. And my broader perspective was to want to bring in all of these different businesses, these different artists, to come and work together. And it's been quite a challenge to do that, because I feel like there are a lot of trust issues. There are a lot of politics. There's a lot of that. But I provide a safe space and a neutral ground for all artists to come together and create. Yeah,
you definitely do. I mean, since the day I met you, I always had a really warm vibe coming off of you. And you just are a generous, wonderful, welcoming, warm person. And I really appreciate having met you and knowing you and being, involved in what the collective does and just being around. It's such a beautiful community, and I'm in agreement with that. I think arts are for everyone to enjoy. It can get political and competitive. I've seen that too in Toronto. And I try to stay away from that as much as possible and just find the people who want to work together, because it's everything that, no matter what it is, everything is more beautiful shared.
It is.
And I feel like we love it so much. Share it. Just share it,
Even with,
and I feel like there are that, even with your, sorry, I didn't catch that.
With the website, with phxworldarts.org, it's a resource for all artists. And it's not just what I'm doing, but it's who's teaching in Tucson, who's teaching on the West Side, who's teaching in Central Phoenix. So anybody interested in flamenco can actually look up artists. As for you just joined the collective, and I can, so everybody who joins the collective gets their own page and gets broadcasts and gets that type of promo, so that we all know who's doing what in our community, because that's where it gets lost. I feel it's like once we start losing those resources, then people don't know, and then they don't know how to get led or directed to who's doing what here in Arizona.
100%, because when I came here, the first thing I looked for was flamenco, and I had a hard time finding like where and who, and the only thing that I could find was tapas papas frita. I went there. That's actually ironic, like where I met you. And then I found out about this whole other, like through the Phoenix World Arts Collective. That's why it's so important. I found so much more through there, and suddenly it, like, the whole world exploded. And then I ended up in Albuquerque with Francesca and a friend from Toronto, and we were all together, and I made new friends. A wonderful young woman from Chicago who was moving to Houston, and we have our information, and we hung out, and we visited Santa Fe, and I just made a bunch of new friends and had the best time ever. And it was just because everyone was open to sharing. And that's, that's to me, greatest. That's so vital.
It is. And especially like, because Casa Flamenca also has a page there because, they're a collective artist. They are their own set. They're their own nonprofit. And they are aside from Phoenix World Arts Collective, but I'm just happy that I can, at least here in Phoenix, help promote what they're doing out there, because they come out here maybe twice a year to do shows and bring amazing artists with them, and I feel like that's, and tablao style, it's in tablao, it's not even a huge theater. So you get that up close feeling, and you get to meet them after a show and take photos, so it's
that brings me to another question, which is, what are your three, because you touched on one of my favorite things about flamenco. So what are your three favorite things about flamenco and or the community? And like, I'll just share my one because you touched on it, which is you see these incredible world-class artists, like incredible. And they're so approachable, and they make you feel so welcome. I approached Rafael Campayo. The last workshop I took many, many years ago in Toronto was with him. And I didn't get to take a workshop with him in Albuquerque, but I just saw him at a tablao at the Hotel Albuquerque, and I just had to come up to him because I love the way he dances alegrías and tangos. And it's just to tell him and say hi. And he's like, yeah, let's take a picture. And I'm like, oh, I love your sister too. And he's like, come over and meet Adela, talk to Adela. And same, we hung out with Carmen and Juani. It was Carmen's birthday. We had paella at your place. We watched movies. And I'm like, who does this? This is like hanging out with Rafael Campayo is like going to take a acting class with Robert Downey Jr. You know what I mean? Like on that scale in the flamenco world. And I'm like, who has access to people like that, like this? And they're so generous and welcoming, and the level of excitement, that's for me one of my favorite things. It's like sky high because you get to be close to the best of the best of the best.
Right.
Yeah.
And what I love too is that they're, like you said, they're so open and so inviting. I honestly don't even feel like that happens here in the United States, where it's almost like we put these artists on a pedestal and they're so untouchable. But then you have the Spaniards come in, they do a show, and hey, let's have a drink, literally right after the show, where some artists won't even come out of their dressing rooms until the lobby is completely empty, and they're not even Spanish artists. So and that's what I want to bring into the flamenco community, is that it's about the art, it's about teaching, it's not about their name. It's not, what I really honor about it is that they know they come from these honorable families who teach flamenco, and they come here to teach their classes and to have a discussion with us about what flamenco really is. It's coming from the puro side, and it's coming in like Carmen Ledesma. I don't know if you've ever taken a class with Carmen.
I have, actually. I did a workshop in Philly with her.
She's absolutely beautiful in the way that she explains herself and what flamenco is. It's almost like you can feel her wings just cover you, and it's very supportive, and it's it's not egoistic. There's no ego in any of the things that the artists that I bring in who want to teach, like Maria del Mar Fernandez, who came in, and she's very blunt and very herself, and she's not trying to sugarcoat anything, but it's done with love. Everything is done with love, and we want to show you, and this is what flamenco is. because I do feel like we create these perspectives. I feel a lot of dancers dance in their head. They get stuck dancing in their head, and it's like they're not really seeing what we're all seeing, because in their head there's this amazing dancer, and I feel that the Spaniards pull you out of your head and say, no, look, this is what you're doing and this is how you need to correct it. And I here never got that. It was more of a pay for my class, pay for my class. But they kept me going. Yeah. I wasn't growing. I felt like I wasn't growing. I was allowing myself to learn more and to do better for myself. But I never really saw someone look at me.
It's very interesting that you touch on that, because that was a frustration. Well, I had a big gap in my flamenco journey because I got terribly injured. So I missed a good
few years,
10 to 13 years.
Yeah.
Yeah. And the first workshop I did actually after my injury, and I was still like, can I do this? Is my body is it gonna support me, or is it gonna tell me no, right? Was with Carmen Ledesma. And she was so supportive and sweet. And she did really simple but powerful bulerías for us, because it was like a beginner class. So the choreo was, you could remember it. It was amazing. It was super flamenco. And at one point she was so cute. She was, because I was tired. Like, I'm like, I have to rest. I'm not sure. I'm getting a little bit of pain. She's like, fine, you can sing. Just do this. And I'm like, I don't sing. Like, I have no idea. She says, no, you just sing whatever you remember. And we'll do. And I'm like singing and like out of tune, no idea. She said, no, you're fine. And I told her about my injury and stuff. And she was so lovely. She said, oh, eres más flamenca que todo el mundo. Like, you're more flamenca than everybody, because you shouldn't be walking. What are you doing dancing? You're crazy. This is amazing. And I was like, okay, like Carmen Ledesma is telling you this. And she was just so lovely and warm, and exactly what you said, like big wings hugging you. And, but back to, the correction and stuff, I look at it from two sides. I look at it like, in what I'm trying to teach, I do like streams, I go folklorico. If you just want to have fun and you don't want the pressure, like you maybe at this time, because people change their mind, but at this time you're like, I don't want to be semi-professional and professional. I just want to enjoy flamenco. Cool. Take the folkloric stream, and we will focus on technique. But if your technique is not perfect, but you're in compás, like you're enjoying it, you're, in there and you're feeling it, that's great. But then the other stream is more professional. And the reason I've done that is because I really realized that without me filming myself, I did have a good teacher that did correct quite a bit, but it's still not the same. I read a book called The Talent Code, and that informs my teaching. It's all about observation, deep practice, and master coaching.
Right.
And it's so important. Yeah. So as I was saying, you need a master coach. So someone who really knows, what they're doing, who can bluntly, honestly say, yeah, that doesn't work like that, right. Because you have to correct it. And this is how you correct it, because we all know, because we've all experienced this, your muscle memory does not know wrong from right. It just learns whatever you're doing. Mm-hmm. But what it does have a hard time doing is forgetting what it learned to pick up something new. And it doubles your journey. So I'm one of those people where I'm like, I don't care how you correct me. Just please correct me. If you see something wrong, stop me. And stop me. And my cante teacher will do that to me. She's like, I'm so sorry. But I'm like, don't be sorry. If it's wrong, it's wrong. You don't have to be sorry for informing me about reality. That's reality. Your job is to form it. Like, that's why you're teaching me, to tell me it's wrong and how to correct it. Like, that is what teaching is, right? So you have to be, I think it's a dance form. A lot is going on. You have to be quite teachable if you want to do it professionally, and show respect to the art form, because, that always been why it was very difficult for me to get on a stage. I'm like, I know it's not perfect, or I know it's not right, or I know I'm not, and you feel kind of like a duck out of water, and until you feel it in your bones, and then you're like, okay, yeah, now I'm excited, I want to do it, right? But until you feel it in your bones, you're a little trepidatious, like, I don't know if I'm ready for this.
Right. It's amazing. It's a great journey.
It is. It's so much. It's basically, I call it the love of my life. It really is the love of my life for so many reasons.
Mm-hmm.
So to sort of close off, tell me more about the Phoenix World Arts Collective and also La Pinta Flamenca. There's a show coming up on December 14th.
Yes.
What can you tell us about that?
All right. So Phoenix World Arts Collective was established in 2016 with the mission of keeping the world arts alive. And I didn't title it flamenco.org because I wanted it to be an open stage for all types. During that time in 2016, I was dancing with burlesque and Mexican folk and doing fusions. And I really enjoyed it because I was getting burnt out with just dancing flamenco. I wanted to learn more. And so it was just a great platform, to bring other arts. And I used to do De Color y Llanto, which was a world show. And I would bring it was a dinner theater type of show. And I would bring in world arts and burlesque and Indian classical. And
wow.
Yeah, it was amazing. And this was pre-COVID. So now that we're after COVID, I feel we're still rebuilding, and a lot of people stopped dancing, a lot of people stopped performing, and just like me, I had to change my whole career path. I left education, went into banking, and it's just everything that I did at that time did revolve around my dancing. But once dancing was gone for those 2 years during COVID, I had to make some heavy duty decisions. So that's the organization. So that's at phxworldarts.org. And La Pinta Flamenca was a vision that I had for many years prior to that. And La Pinta, because I paint and I draw, and that was my first love. And then I found flamenco. And so La Pinta being to paint, La Pinta, and then when they talk to you about La Pinta, your face, and how your face is very, very important in flamenco with your expressions and how you're exuding what's being felt within what's being created on stage. I put them together and called them La Pinta Flamenca. It's a art gallery plus tablao show combined. So you get those visual arts and you get the performing arts all in one stage, in one place. It is a mobile tablao. So right now it is being held at the Arizona Latino Arts and Cultural Center in downtown Phoenix. Tickets are on sale. So if you go to phxworldarts.org, you'll find the tablao, like tickets for tablao La Pinta Flamenca. Click on there. And I'm using the Zephy platform, which is free. It's a free platform. So what you pay is actually what you pay for tickets. You're not paying processing fees. You're not paying any other types of fees, but what you're paying for the organization. And so it's a great platform. So I really hope people can go and enjoy this tablao, because we have David Gutierrez Molina from Barcelona coming in. We have La Checha from Albuquerque, Chayito Champion from San Antonio, and Misael Barraza, who's coming in from Tucson to do the show. And of course, Francesca Flamenco is going to be opening up the show, and she's local here, has been dancing over, I don't know, a long time too. Francisca's been dancing a long time.
20, yeah.
Yeah.
20 years ago.
Yeah. So it's nice now that she's starting to form her dance company, and it's her time. And I really want to showcase that and highlight her and everything that she's done. Because again, being an artist, you're always so willing to support, but it takes a huge step to finally support your own vision. And she's starting to do that. So I want to be there to support her 100% with her decisions.
Yeah, Francesca's great. I just had a private with her yesterday. We had so much fun. She had some of her family in the backyard with a barbecue. She's like, will you dance Sevillanas with castanets for my family? I'm like, of course.
Oh,
so we danced in the backyard, and it was just so sweet. That's the thing. It bridges two worlds, right? It's like on the stage, but then in real life, and all the friendships and the family. And it's beautiful. Yeah, I'm excited to see Francesca's work. And I can say, as an audience member already a couple of times of La Pinta, nobody should miss it. It's amazing. I've enjoyed the shows I've seen so much, and I'm so looking forward to the next one. So, yeah, and to close off, I'll ask one last question, which is, what advice would you have for someone who is either just interested in entering the flamenco world as, let's say, taking dance classes, or someone who might already be trying or aspiring to become a professional dancer?
Okay. So, main one, do it for yourself. Don't get discouraged because we do tend to put our teachers on a pedestal. But don't be afraid to take various classes from various teachers because it is about your journey, your loyalty to yourself. Stay very dedicated to whatever art you're doing, whether you want to sing, whether you want to dance. Surround yourself with people who love it. Go on YouTube, find videos, because there is a code in flamenco that we're trying to figure out, right? There's this language that happens. And I feel that if you're in constant research of what it is that you're trying to achieve, find it. And then you're going to see that once you learn the rules, you can break the rules. But you have to learn the rules first. And so, and be light on yourself, because there were many times where I was very, very hard on myself. And I just feel like being an artist, being true to yourself, you're very hard on yourself because you tend to start to compare yourself to other people's levels, what you can do, what you can't do. But in the end, always keep that in mind. It is your journey. You go as far as you want to go. Don't let anybody push you around, because in the end, you're going to be there watching you celebrating.
Well, I think that's all really excellent advice. I agree 100%. I relate to all the items mentioned, let's say. And I want to just thank you once again for coming on and sharing time with me and doing this. This is new for me, brand new. I'm really enjoying it because I feel like I adore this community and I want to share it and I want to showcase people and artists. And I think a lot of people don't realize how difficult the arts really are, and how devoted and how much love goes into them. And I would really like to highlight all of that. The general aim of the series is to explore and share the beauty of flamenco through a kaleidoscopic lens made out of personal journeys and stories and the perspectives of professionals and serious devotees, because I feel like flamenco is a very special and magical place that I'd love to see supported more and grow more. So I thank you very much once again for your time and participating on this tiny, growing podcast.
No, and I want to thank you too for providing this platform for us to have our voice and to really speak from our perspective and our personal life experiences and how flamenco has changed each and every one of us so differently. So thank you.
You're very welcome. It's absolutely my pleasure. And I can't wait to see the next La Pinta show, December 14th at ALAC. Get your tickets at phx.org. Am I correct?
PHX World Arts.
No. World Arts. I forgot that. PHX for Phoenix, worldarts.org.
That's it.
Okay, perfect. Thank you, Carlos. See you soon.
Bye.
Bye.